the tertiary education in Nigeria is paralyzed, means drastic measures are required to salvage the situation. As part of this, the National Association of Nigerian Students is begging presidential aspirants to raise money for the Academic Staff Union of Universities to end the strike. In a statement by the chairman of Ogun State Joint Campus Committee of NANS, Kehinde Simeon, in Abeokuta, the students called on former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, and other presidential aspirants to raise money to meet the demands of striking university lecturers. BKO, this looks like an honest request.
Asking politicians to provide money for the funding of public universities is not the ideal situation. It's a quick fix. And you don't comprehensively solve problems by adopting the quick fix approach. Public universities must be adequately funded. They have to be provided for in the budget. And the provision for the funding of public universities must be adequate. What I'm saying is we have to prioritize education and ensure that these public universities are sufficiently funded. Let's not deceive ourselves. Yes, we may have so many private universities all over the place. Private universities can only account for about 10% of people seeking university education, seeking tertiary education. So government has to realize that tertiary education is something that it has to prioritize. If we watch the public universities die as a result of poor funding and associated problems, it will cause massive problems, big problem for even our unborn children. There is no way that an overwhelming majority of Nigerians can afford to put their children in private schools where in some cases parents are made to pay as much as 800,000 naira per semester. So we have to realize that there's no way the government cannot abdicate its responsibility. If it needs more funding, it can come up with laws that will ensure that corporate concerns in our country dedicate a huge portion of their profits to funding education. We've seen some states like Kano State, make it mandatory that in any transaction, in any monetary transaction that you are doing with the state government, a certain percentage of what you are paying goes to funding public education. We can have that at the national level to ensure that we secure more funding through the instrumentality of the law for our public institutions. It's not enough to simply imagine that because politicians have so much money or because some people are stealing money, as we have seen the Accountant General being accused of stealing 80 billion now. Therefore, we have to look at politicians and tell them to pay what ASUU is asking for. The Federal Ministry of Education is the employer of ASUU members. Therefore, the ministry, assisted by the Federal Ministry of Finance, must come up with funding to freshen up infrastructure in the universities, must meet the demands of ASUU. What ASUU is asking for is not simply, give us this amount of money. How about the issue of UTAS? Can the politicians that NANS is begging to release money, can they solve that problem? It's beyond them to solve that problem, for example. They are saying we don't want IPPIS. Give us something more flexible than IPPIS, which is the UTAS. So even if politicians release some money, to pay for what ASUU is asking for, how about the big decision which has to do with UTAS? Because those are the two major issues that ASUU is asking government to do for it. So I just see this as a kind of quick fix. Government must be resolute in its desire to adequately fund ASUU. And the way to do it is to tell them, for government to tell itself that, look, in the budget, this is the percentage that we are giving education. Some of the countries around us, Senegal, Ghana, and the rest of them, the percentage of their budget that goes into funding public education is way greater. So we have to look at even our surroundings and ask ourselves whether we are funding education sufficiently.
There is an urgent need to reposition our public universities. I was having this conversation with someone, like saying the politicians are making a hell of a lot of money. Sorry, the parties actually at this time. So it could be that the students are they have a feeling that let's just cash in out on these people. They should just help us to solve this problem. At least they are gunning for positions. So do you think it's possible for the politicians to say, the aspirants to say, okay, the highest bidder, I put in money, I'll assist the government because there's cash crunch?
I don't think the students are going about it the right way. What we should be doing by now is to set the agenda that among this crop of money bags, who are aspiring to run the show after President Muhammadu Buhari, then you ask for the blueprint, what their plan on education, so that you can mobilize Nigerian youths that this is the person that we should vote for, that this man has a plan that we believe is the best for this sector. Because the sector concerns everybody, parents, children, everybody. You get my point?
Yeah.
You see, in any society that aspires, to be something worthwhile, there are two sectors you must never toy with: health, education. Without touching those two sectors very well, every other thing you do will become meaningless. Because the two sectors are about human beings. They make you who you are, that's education. Then whether you'll be okay, you'll be alive, you'll be able to, contribute meaningfully, that's health. Without doing things in this area. But when you look at our country, what do? We have the kind of leaders that we should not have. Just, I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to be unfair to anybody. You see state governments, federal governments, establishing universities, polytechnics, upgrading universities, upgrading polytechnics, upgrading colleges of education, when the existing ones are poorly funded for political reasons. That's what they keep doing. The ones they have, go there. So if you go to universities in other places, then you come to our own, and you now say, okay, are we the idea of a university? Do we really understand what it means? So for our future, we need to sit down. Maybe there will be a law. Okay, for every administration, whether social party or whatever party, it does not matter. This is about country. This is about ourselves. This is what we will, devote to education. This is what we devote, to health. That we have not done. So what the students are saying is just to further model up the system.
Right.
We need to, put these people, gunning for presidency. Yeah. We need to ask them critical questions. What would they do if they have the opportunity to become president? You get my point?
Right, absolutely.
Instead of collecting their money.
Absolutely, your point is made. Dr. Oladapo, I want to quickly make a weigh in on this. Just like someone who is drowning and saying, I'll hold on to any available strand of mystique or anything just to stay afloat.
The point is, how much will these people likely give to the system to reflate it, so to say? What ASUU is telling us is a request for about 200 billion naira. Among these aspirants, how much are we likely to get? Fine, they are all going on campaigns and all the rest, but it's a part of the political process. You can't truncate that just to fund education. That is one. Like my colleague said, we also need to interrogate these aspirants and ask them pertinent questions. Because a lot of them come into power, not even knowing what to do with the power. And that perhaps is one of the things we are suffering now as a nation. Because you ask yourself, this issue with ASUU and the Joint Action Council for NASU and all the other non-academic bodies, they've had all of these memorandums of association and understanding or whatever signed. 10 years in some instances. Some much more. And nothing has been done. If, like we say, you promise a man 20 naira over 20 years, and you are consistently paying 10 naira, that man will see a commitment towards what you are doing.
Yeah.
We should also interrogate what is happening with the funds made available to the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, because these are monies from companies paid as funds into the education tax fund. What are we doing with the money? Does it align with what all of these university associations want and the polytechnics and colleges of education?
Yeah.
Because they're all involved now. Does it align with it? Is this just about construction of buildings? Or federal government saying the Ministry of Works should move into tertiary institutions to construct roads? Yeah. Is it all about that? Are we talking about just projects and all the rest without adequately ensuring that we have the right staffing, the right equipment to even teach?
Making sure that everything is
fine.
put in place. Yeah.
As in doing some sort of balancing act. Right. Not for us to hear that Third Fund has given 43 million to build Senate building here. Ministry of Works has done 200 kilometers of roads in universities. Yeah. We should be able to juggle some of these things. That's what makes us leaders.
Absolutely.
Because all right. You can't just put all your funds, all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
And maybe if I can quickly add also, these associations should also help us. They can do they can get a lot of grants that can go into some of these things. They should help. It should not just be all about give to us. We should be able to get something from them. Professor Ogun did something in Unilag in his almost ending tenure now. Getting research grants as much as 17 billion.